guys, welcome back to the Rake. We have a very special guest today. My dad, Gary Cordeiro, longtime poker reg, played full-time for many years and, was responsible for luring me into this hellscape that we know as poker. So
I'm the one that blamed for that, yeah.
we're very excited to have you. So why don't you just tell us a little bit how you got into poker and how you got to be playing?
Well, first of all, I've watched all the vlogs, and everybody is a very special guest. So,
yeah. Well.
So I mean, basically, I get into poker the way a lot of young guys do. It's like you like gaming, you're competitive, and you're around it, and you have that allure. Like for me specifically, I was in bands when I was younger. I played piano, so I did a lot of like cruise ships and casinos where they have a gaming area. So on breaks, you kind of sneak over and do some playing. And then in my jobs, I'd go on business trips to Vegas. So I remember my first trip going over to the Mirage and playing stud. It's like mid '90s type era. So and I think my competitive nature kind of got me started. I mean, like for me, it wasn't about the money and being a rock star and being famous and buying 5 cars or social aspects. None of that. It really was my allure. It's just kind of it was the competitive nature mostly.
So you're playing a little bit here and there on cruise ships and just kind of on the road and on business trips, and then like what was the moment where you were like, this could be something full time?
Yeah, well, a lot of things kind of happened all at the same time. So we're talking like the late '90s, mid '90s. I have a job I don't like. No Limit Hold'em and Limit starting to become bigger. So I'm starting to play more. At this time, I'm living outside of Boston, and Foxwoods just opened. So all these things are coming together at the same time. So I'm going down to the casino. Started off with blackjack and those kinds of things, and then poker seemed a better game. I think most of us start that way, and you realize there's no future with blackjack, so you move on to poker. But then the boom, I started taking trips to Vegas, and I tried going to Foxwoods and having success early on. And I think that's the killer right there. If you win right away, you're hooked, and that's it.
Did you win a tournament or anything early on?
I didn't do tournaments. Believe it or not, I thought in the beginning I was playing cash game. At the time it was limit is what I mostly played, like 5-10 limit or 4-8 limit, whatever the low stakes was. And I thought over in the tournament era, well, those are the good players. You're going to be invited for that, or you got to qualify. So I didn't understand tournaments. So I didn't really do tournaments in the beginning. No.
That's crazy. So I remember you had this one friend growing up. His name was Billy, who kind of was like he played full time. He also had some kids. Did you have any other mentors in the beginning or anything, or did you kind of just wing it?
I didn't, but that guy Billy, who was a regular at Foxwoods in the 20, 40, 40, 80 limit game. He was the guy I pointed to because he was about my age, he had 4 kids, he had a nice house, he had a wife. I said, you know what? You can do this and have a balanced life.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be one of these degenerates, living in the street, and I think I shower for 5 days. You can really, so he kind of was my example to say, you can do it. So I was having success, and I think people know the backstory. I was a single father. It was just me and Marle out there. So I was working this job, and I was looking for a way to play. So I was going to Foxwoods, when I could on the weekends and this and that.
What were you doing at this point? I forget.
As far as what work?
Yeah, work.
I was working at Bose, which is a big company, headphones and speaker company outside Boston. Really good job, 6-figure job back in the '90s. So I was killing it, but I didn't like my job. I mean, I actually hated it, because the whole
Jamie has a very similar story to this.
A lot of people just go, I hate my job. And you think about it every day, and you're like, I don't want to be here. And every day you think, maybe I'll quit today. And then finally, when you do, it's like the best feeling in the world. You walk out knowing you never have to go back. It's awesome. That's
the problem. They tell you your whole life, study hard, get good grades, go to college, and if you're lucky, you can go sit in a cube all day.
Mm-hmm.
So I reached the finish line, and I wasn't happy. And this is not for me. But then the reality of making a living sets in too. So, So basically, I mean, I spent the last 20, 25 years bouncing back and forth. Either playing in a band, having a real job, playing poker, going back to a job, going back to playing poker, just kind of filling in the gaps and just doing that. So when I was raising Marley, she had a kind of a similar experience because I figured why I put her on a track that didn't make me happy, you know. So she started off with music, piano, voice lessons, the whole bit that I did. I mean, when she was 8 years old, I was running around one nightly dance class, then voice class, then piano lessons, then gymnastics. It's like she did everything, right? And then she said, hey, I want to quit all that and just do modeling when she was like 12 years old. She had braces. I said, you know what? Once you get your braces off, fine. If you want to still do modeling, come talk to me then. The day they were off, she said, let's go to Boston and get an agent. So that's getting off track on that. But yeah, but my job drove me crazy. Was the main reason for a lot of things. Like I said, I mean, I don't like interacting with people. I'm not really saying I'm an introvert, but poker, that was my escape. You know, some people go to socialize. I go not to socialize, not to talk to anybody, just sit there, do my own thing, and just play. And if I cannot have a boss and make a living, that was fine. And I'll tell you, Jamie, I think a lot of these grinders, if you were to ask them, you know, if I could make $2,000 a week playing poker, guaranteed, no more, no less, I bet you a lot of them will take it. Give up that dream of being a rock star, right? I mean,
I think so. I think even just sleeping in is nice. Like having your own schedule, even if you said you have to still work 40 hours a week, but you get to schedule it yourself and you get to go to whichever casino or card club you feel like playing in. Even that is enough for a lot of people, because for me, that was the thing that sucked, is thinking ahead and saying in 10 years, if I'm waking up at 5:30 in the morning just to get a half an hour at the gym, just to be able to go to this job I don't really like, if I'm still doing that, that sucks. Even if I had $1 million in the bank from it, I didn't want to be doing that. So I think for poker players, like just the freedom is alluring for a lot of people.
I mean, you're so reliant on somebody else's approval for your success when you work in the corporate world. You can be unlucky and have an awful boss and you're going nowhere. It doesn't matter how much you work hard or how good you are, you're going nowhere. So I want to have more control than that. So that's where I was at, you know. So around 1999, 2000, around there, I left my job at both. I was making good money playing poker, and I said, hey, why not? So I grinded locally for a couple of years, you know, but the travel, because I was about an hour away from the casino, and I would go to Vegas. I'd play some circuit events here and there. I'd travel down to AC, and I'd do just some different things. But then I said, you know what? Marley just graduated middle school. You know, why don't we get a clean break and why don't we move to Vegas? So that's when we moved to Vegas when she was starting high school. I figured I can have better hours, closer to a casino, better action, more fish, whatever the reason. So that was like 2003, 2004. So I was still playing limit at that point. So this is right after RAYMER won. Because I remember RAYMER, because RAYMER was a regular at Foxwoods. So that kind of, he won. It's kind of, I said, geez, okay, local guy that I knew playing around. So I moved to Vegas right around that year, 2004. Still playing limit though. So if you remember, no limit cash games weren't really big at that point. Some 1-2 stuff, you know, $100 caps, but it really wasn't big, you know. Yeah. But it was quickly after that, the only guys playing limit were the old time guys that knew the game. So there was no soft games. And Bellagio switched from a 30-60, 15-30 structure to a 20-40, 40-80, which really changed the game a lot. It split the good players up. So one move up, one move down. So there was no middle game that you can make a living at that was still soft. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Marle, I wanted to ask you, Marle, what was it like when you moved to Vegas? Were you happy to make the move? Was it just something you felt like, okay, we have to do this?
Yeah, I was actually surprisingly excited, and I mean, I wasn't like very popular in school or whatever, so like I wasn't like, I had a few like really close friends, like two, but it wasn't like, oh, I just have this big group here. So I was kind of like, and I was going through an awkward stage, so I was just very open to, yeah, let's do it. I don't know.
That's cool. Just you're like, okay, a whole new group of friends, like an opportunity to just have a new start if you weren't like super happy where you were.
It was a big change though, because I remember her school in Massachusetts was a really small, we lived in a small town, Like her class had like 80 kids in her whole graduating class, and I moved to Vegas. I kind of did the research. I mean, there were like 40 high schools in Las Vegas, so I tried to pick the smallest one in the best neighborhood, and we ended up going to Spring Valley High School. But there was still 3,000 kids in that school, and in the town we grew up in, totally white makeup to the whole town. That's the way it is in Massachusetts, and totally different in Vegas. You had everything. I mean, you had homeless kids, you had every race. So, but Marle seemed to handle that change, and I think it made her better too, because she wasn't as sheltered, and she saw that from a young age. And I think, and the other thing too, I mean, Marle actually went to 7 different schools in her from K through 12. So we did move a lot for various reasons. So, but I think that kind of allowed her to adapt more easily. Like she turned 18, she was off to college in Manhattan. Then from there she moved to Las Vegas, and then to London. And so she's off and running, So.
Yeah. So Marle, talk a little bit about how many times you've been expelled from school.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, I've had a few close calls. I'm not gonna lie. I've had a few close calls.
You laughed at it, but she was in high school. She was modeling when she was starting at 14. So, like her senior year of high school, she actually missed 40 days of school her senior year because she was on so many photo shoots, and she almost didn't graduate. We had to get an exception from the principal in order for her to graduate, and so yeah.
But yeah. So I mean, I just think this. I mean, when you were in Vegas and you kind of were doing it all by yourself, obviously Jamie and I and everyone watching knows, like, I can look back on so many people that have helped me and been instrumental, and you really had nobody to kind of help you. You did it all by yourself. Talk about that and I don't know, that experience.
Yeah, it's a big handicap, really. I mean, you can read all you want and play all you want and study, but it accelerates your growth if you can bounce ideas off people and you're not in a bubble. And so many things that you think are just common sense, it's actually counterintuitive. So many things, So you gotta just getting support, even like on a bad day, getting support and reassure that, hey, this is normal, no big deal. Someone have a drink with. So a lot of that I didn't have. We didn't know anybody in Vegas. And like I said, my temperament at the table is to be quiet and to not make friends and not to talk too much. And so I didn't really make any poker friends in Vegas during that phase, for sure. Yeah. So it was tough.
And so, you ended up, so we went through like a pretty tough time, we really struggled in Vegas and we ended up having to go back home. And then you kind of and you had to re-enter the workforce kind of.
Yeah. So we went back home and we moved back in with my parents in their town. So Marle had to go to a new school, didn't know anybody. And I don't know if you've really been through that. Maybe some of the viewers will, but it's like when you decide that this is it, I got to go back to a different life. It's not the next day. There's a mental aspect to that. You got to change how you think and your priorities and ego involved. So it took me a long time, 6 to 8 months, to really say, you know what, dude, you're not going to pick up where you left off. You got to really start over again. I drove an airport shuttle limousine just to have some money coming in, just to start someplace, and it was real humbling for sure. But I was able to get another good job. But I think about this still, it's like timing and things aligning in life are kind of important as much as luck. So it's like, had I not went busto in Vegas when Marle was in high school and had to leave, just think if I was making it, grinding it, and I would have had to put my effort into that, my career in poker, as much as Marle. But because that was removed from my attention, we came back home, and so now we could focus on Marle and her modeling, because she wanted to do more. So you know what? We have nothing else going on right now. We need something to feel good about. So let's do it. So that's when we got into her modeling, and that took off. And we had the time and the energy, because that takes a lot of time to go on castings all the time. So, and prepare. So I often think that, geez, if I hadn't gone busto, a whole different path for both of us probably would have happened. So there's a silver lining, I guess, in a lot of things.
For sure. And Marley, I feel like modeling and acting probably has a lot of variance like poker, because you probably have to go to a lot of auditions and then you might land one really good one, but it might be like feast or famine. Do you think that prepared you a little bit for how poker treats us?
Totally. Yeah, totally. I mean, just kind of, it's a trial and error. And, you know, a lot of times you have to just do something in game and then you don't know if it's right and you have to just throw shit at the wall. And so, yeah, it definitely helped. But, yeah, I don't know.
On a casting, I mean, they rip the girls apart. I mean, you get too short, you're too this, you're too that. I mean, the littlest thing right to your face, they'll rip you. I mean, you got to be thick-skinned. You really do. It's tough.
Yeah. And then if you are thick-skinned, they're like, you're too fat.
Oh, for sure. So, yeah, but modeling also gave Marley, I really wanted her to kind of, like I said, when I was raising her, I wanted to take all the things in my life that I thought held me back or I could do over. And one of the things was, you know what, if I could do it over, I would have left. I was 18, my hometown, and just gone out into the world and find something and just not be trapped. So I didn't want Marley to be stuck home being some hometown honey, some local plumber or something like that, you know, with 4 kids, you know. So I really wanted her to get out, and modeling allowed her to get to New York and go to college in New York City, and that was her way out, and it paid off.
Yeah, now I'm here. I do poker podcasts. It all paid off.
You made it.
Yeah. Rake, yay!
You laugh, but I mean, it was a choice, though. I mean, you weren't put in this very restricted lane that you couldn't get out of, which so many people are, you know. So it was. But so continuing on, so it's like, I got a real job again, good career, good job, and this working from home this time. So when Marley went off to college, I said, you know what, I can work from home anywhere. So I sold everything and I moved back to Vegas. So this is like 2010, 2011, and this is when the bubble, you know, crashed and houses were super cheap in Vegas. I bought a really nice house in a gated neighborhood, Seven Hills out in Henderson, kind of really nice area on the dirt cheap because it was collapsed. So nice house. And then I had a girlfriend back in Boston that I just started dating, because the whole time I was raising Marley, I really didn't date much. But as she was going off to college, I started dating this woman I met at work, and she came with me to Vegas, and now she's my wife now. So we bought this nice house out in Henderson. And once again, it drove me crazy to own a house. So we sold that, and I bought a condo on the Strip, high rise, right next to the Bellagio. So great. Now I'm like a tourist full time, you know, playing, you know, walk to Bellagio, walk to Aria. So that was cool, super cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's like really interesting trajectory your life took then, because you kind of bounced all over the place, briefly played poker for a living. How do you feel about it now? Now, especially since Marley's making all this content and like you're consuming her content, does it make you want to just go back to it again?
It does. I mean, so I do go through spells for a year and a half where I don't play. Like, so now I'm in Florida now, in St. Pete. So I left Vegas like 2 years ago because my wife's parents live here and they're older and they don't quite need help yet, but she wanted to spend time with them because she's the only child before those years are gone, right? So we moved here in St. Pete, and I did a lot of playing at the Hard Rock in Tampa when I first moved here. But now I have a real job again in marketing, so I didn't play. And then, so Marley's doing all this podcast, and the only time I really get to see her now is because I don't see her that much, especially now that she's over in UK or Dublin now. And so it does give me the bug, no doubt about it. It does give me the bug to get back into it, and like watching her and Spraggy both. I learn a lot. I mean, those are good streams. I mean, if you're starting off, you can really learn a lot because they tell you what they're thinking, you know. And I never had that. And you don't get that out of a book, you know. Such situational thinking like that. So you can really learn a lot if you know how to listen, you know. So there's a bunch of poker rooms in Tampa Bay, the Hard Rock, and then there's a bunch of these dog tracks. But they're good rooms though. So I do play that. And it's funny though, because there's a big difference in the dynamic between the Vegas games and the local card rooms. You know, local card rooms, there's a set player pool, like 30 players. Over here, there's a 1-2 and a 1-3 game. But the 1-3 game actually plays like a small 2-5, $500 cap, opens are like $15, $20 open. So it plays like a small 2-5. But the same players, they all know each other. And they're all like these small business owners that have more money than brains, right? And seriously, I mean, I don't know how to explain it. They have money to burn and they just don't care. And I mean, guys will lose three to 4K in a 1-3 game and it doesn't bother them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to give an example, like the other night I was playing this guy, there's a bunch of these guys. So he opens for like $20, a really good reg shoves on him for 400. Snap calls him, turns over his hand loud and proud, 6'9" offsuit, and says, "You know what? I'm the only guy in this room with the balls enough to make that call." It's like
probably true.
That's the game. It's like, oh, how can you not win in that game, right? It's like super good.
Yeah, I went on a trip right before COVID happened and everything started shutting down. I went to Daytona, their card club in Orange County. Yeah. I loved I had so much fun there. There was a charity event I got invited to. I'm like, yeah, sure, I do want to hang out in Florida. They go there, and it was a completely different feel from all the Vegas games. Because if you play mid-stakes in Vegas, like the games are kind of tight and boring. And I go there, and they're like, everyone's just like, oh, hey, that's Tom. He's the best player in this room. You don't want to play against him. And I'm like, oh, really? Like, I was like, he's the best player in this room. But that's how it felt. It was like a tiny card club. They still had, they have quite a few tables there, but there is like local lore. It's like, oh, this guy's really good. And then, did you hear about this guy? He's in oil. He has $1 billion. You want to play at his table. Yeah. Every person knew each other. And the games are just like wild and flashy. And people were basically just wanting to show that they have heart, that they're not a nit.
They do that. A lot of table swapping, no doubt about it. Might be 3-4 games, a lot of that. Mm-hmm. But no strat talk at the table, none of that. It's like people just had to have a good time and drink, and no fights, or no one gets nasty, none of that. At least here in Tampa. There's a Kyrum in Sarasota too, very similar, but even more so. They all know each other, and there's no colluding. They don't know how to collude. They don't know. Although there was one time, my first time playing, I did get mad because two guys, older guys, sitting side by side, and I check raised him, and he picks up his hand, shows it to the guy sitting next to him, and says, "What do you think? Should I call or not?" I'm like, what the hell is this? Really? Yeah. So I just said something to Dio. Said, they don't mean anything. Don't worry. But and it's true. They didn't mean anything. He was obviously going to fold, But things like that. Never do that in Vegas. Could never get away with that in Vegas.
Yeah, it's funny though, because people have this idea that Vegas is like the pinnacle. You have to be in Vegas if you're a professional poker player. You should move here. That's where all the action is. As far as tournaments, yeah, it's a really great place to live. You want to play high stakes tournaments. Yeah. But for cash, I don't know. I've gone to LA a few times, to Florida, middle of the country for some of these Run Good Gear series, and the cash games are just looser and crazier and more fun to play.
Yeah. See, I mean, my whole approach to the game, which was probably a mistake, I'm not going to say it was I'm not looking for these juicy games at a high variance, but you can make, 5 buy-ins in a night. I'm looking for a slow, steady, as close to a guarantee as I can get, grind it out, solid, hourly. So I play a lot of day sessions. So are
you sure Marley's really your daughter? Because that does not seem like.
It's true. Totally different. Maybe she's looking at me and thinking, well, don't do this, So I would get up in the morning, 11 o'clock, either be at Aria or Bellagio, wait for the 2-5 game to kick off, and sit there 4 hours. After that, I'm kind of spent a little bit, and that was it. That was my game. So I missed out on a lot of those juicy games, night games. Mm-hmm. LA, went to Commerce a couple of times. Definitely not my scene or my style, no doubt. But East Coast poker, I don't know if you know much, but Atlantic City and Foxwoods, it's a less aggressive than LA for sure. So that was part of my upbringing too. Yeah.
It's funny because obviously our family and people throughout when you were doing this, obviously were like, what's, you've faced so much more hate and what is, do you have a gambling problem, all this kind of stuff. And I would always tell people, especially, and I understand it even more now in hindsight, it's like, you are I'm not saying you're a net, but you're the least degen person I know. Do you know what I mean? You're so kind of methodical about it and controlled, and it's just funny to me now because
it's a funny lane that I'm in because you're right. Most grinders and poker players will think that I'm a total net and geez, get more gamble in you. But people in my other world, in my corporate, and think I'm this risk taker and I'm Mr. Crazy. So it's I get this little lane here, I guess.
We interrupt this podcast with an important message from our sponsors at Run It Once. If you haven't already heard the news, Run It Once Poker is happy to announce that we are officially out of beta. To celebrate, we're offering a special 101% welcome offer to all first-time depositors. If you make your first deposit by Sunday, September 20th, you will receive a 101% cash bonus on all Legends rewards for your first 4 weeks. Plus, we'll throw in up to $100 worth of Run It Once training content to help you bring your game to the next level. This exclusive offer is on top of our long-standing and already generous 100% welcome bonus, in which we match 100% of your deposits up to €600 for your first 30 days. For full details, head to once.run/101welcome. That's once.run/101welcome. And now, back to the pod.
So when I moved back to Vegas, Marle was in college, and then she visited a few times. But there's a good story about. So when Marle turned 21, she decided to come see her dad in Vegas. That was okay. I guess there's worse things to do for your 21st birthday. So she comes out and she wanted to play live poker because she had always played, as family. She couldn't wait to play live. So she came out, and I was playing in a game at the Aria, and I gave her like $10. Say, hey, I'm going to finish this up. Here, it's just $10. So she goes, throws it in a slot machine right outside the poker room, right there, and she hits it for like $1,600 or something. Like, oh, we're up the bat. And then the next day, we go play in a Bellagio tournament. They used to have their 5 o'clock $100 buy-in tournament, and she played it and finished third in that event, like 100 runners. So it's like, I said, okay, she's hooked. That's it. And she was. She never looked back.
That's so how it works. I went with my best girlfriend, and we went for a Vegas trip, and we did everything that you would do as like single girls in Vegas and had so much fun. But both of us had watched poker on TV. We're like, let's go play. We played a $100 nightly tournament. She finished in the money, and I got heads up with another woman. There's like 3 women in the whole thing. There's probably 80 players. And I remember it was only I think I won $800 or something like that. But I left Vegas with more money than I came with, which was never the plan. We came to get drunk and spend money and go shopping and stuff. It was the best feeling.
If I would have lost like even $500, even $100, my first time playing, I was this sucks. Moved on, you know. But when Maya started playing, she started, like I said, grinding like all of us. But I will say this: Marle did have this one leak when she was first starting to play 1-2 that. She fixed this one leak and right away her hourly tripled. So if anybody wants to know how to improve, so she had this leak where she would buy it and chips at the cage, and she'd be walking around sitting at the table and chips be falling out of her pocket, like black chips. And the cleaning lady would come over and say, "Hey, excuse me, miss, are these your chips under the chair?" The next day she's asking the floor to run the camera back. Or I dropped a couple $100 chips out of my pocket. Every session, she would drop $100 chips out of her pocket. So when she fixed that leak, now she was a winner. Right off the bat.
An actual leak. You're one of those people, like, we use that as a metaphor to plug you to actually plug your pockets. That's great.
That actually did happen a few times. Yeah, I'm just such a goober. I'm very forgetful. But yeah. So what's your relationship to poker now? Like, how much do you play these days?
Yeah, I'm at a point where I obviously don't do it for a living, but there's a huge difference without that component to it. It's totally fun, but then there's also the other side thing. Why go potentially lose $500 or $1,000 when that's hard-earned money, and any money I win isn't going to change anything? So like I said, I don't have that deep down love for the game, that drive. Although once in a while I do. So that's my thing now. It's like 2-3 times a month I'll go play. I'll play a tournament, but the tournaments suck now because they're like 80 players capped because of COVID, right? So and there are like 7 players at a table, so you got to cash in the top 7 or 8 to even win. So by the time you get to the money bubble, you have 13 big, so it's huge variance. And they're $100 buy-ins with small fields, so min cash is $160. It's just not worth it. I remember in Vegas, if I was going to do a tournament like at the Venetian, I wait until you get these $300 buy-ins, multiple day ones, first prize is $100K for that's a good overlay. It's just a huge return. Now to buy into $100 and top prize is $1,200, and you're probably going to chop it 3 ways for $800. What's the point of that?
Yeah, and also I was trying to see what your point was with basically poker can't change your life that much right now if you're grinding small. Like if you have a good real job and you're making X amount per year, and you're like, oh, poker can only increase that 10% because I only get to play once in a while, and this is the limit I play at, and who really cares? It like hurts more to lose than it feels good to win. But then with tournaments, do you feel like that's pushed you a little bit towards tournaments because then you actually can really change your life?
I would. But the tournaments aren't that big. I mean, down in Hollywood, Florida, they still have some pretty big ones. So I'll drive down there. I've done that in the past. I mean, last year I drove down and met Marle down there and played a couple of WPT stuff. So those are tournaments that are worth playing because if you're going to hit it and get lucky, and get lightning in a bottle or whatever, also being a big one, right? And get $100,000 even. It doesn't be life changing. Even $100,000, $200,000 is worth it. But I mean, my dream at this time for poker, because there's tons of these guys in Vegas, so I'd love to be that guy that's 65, 70 years old, nothing else to do all day, and his kid gives him $10,000 a month poker budget to go play. So
I'm sorry. Do you have another kid that I don't know about? Because that's your only hope. Podcast doesn't pay very well.
Yeah, Marle, why don't you just give him 10% of the podcast money that you make?
There you
go. Can fulfill his dream.
That would be great. Honestly, I wish I was that rich. Maybe, maybe I'll get lucky. But I mean, I'm telling you,
there's still time. There's still plenty of time.
Yeah. So you've obviously been playing poker for a long time. What's the biggest change you've seen in live poker over the years?
In live poker, just when all the online guys came on at the Black Friday, and the game became more of guys in hoodies and headphones and not interacting, and the old guys stopped coming. It just changed. That dynamic changed for sure.
But you like that because you're like, don't talk to me.
I do like that, but I want the other people to be loosey goosey and splashing around. Yeah, for sure. But I don't think poker would die. Like I know 6 months ago, people were saying with COVID and 4 max, whatever Vegas was doing at the time, it's going to kill the game. But it seems like 7 to 8 max is going to be standard, and it's going to come back, I think. And online had a little burst there, Marle, right, in April, but that seems to be kind of back to normal now, because I don't really watch online that much.
It's pretty normal now. I think what might happen though is for me personally, I really liked playing online a lot more than live, and I would just play live for WSOP in the summer, and I would play when there'd be a good series in town or something. Yeah. And now I really want to play live. I miss it because we've taken so much time off that I actually really feel like I miss just the banter and like the dealers I like and whatever else, and going to the restaurants, just everything about the casino. So I'm hoping that other people feel the same way, and that when this is all over and it's actually safe for everyone, that everyone will feel that way, and maybe there'll be a live poker boom again. Yeah. I don't know.
Like even hold chips and holding cards. I mean, all that stuff. It's just
It's weird, right? You miss little things. I was like, I haven't shuffled chips in a long time. Maybe I'll just put one next to my laptop and pretend I'm playing.
I mean, when you go to the cage with 2 racks, right, and you get handed cash, I mean, that's great. You walk out, you offer $100 steak, and that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's a good feeling. When you have one of those amazing nights, like if you're a reg at a room and you just have like 3 or 4 racks and you make the round around the room to say bye to all your friends, just to be like, look how many chips I have.
Yeah. It's just not the same online. I mean, I like online, but I think I'll always love live poker the most.
Yeah, for sure. But things definitely change. I mean, like the game change. I mean, Marle would say, I'm kind of a nip. But back 20 years ago, I wasn't a nip. I mean, I basically the same way I play now, but that was considered aggressive back then.
Well, like they made some mistakes back then. You should play like a net. You know what I mean? Like all you need to do is play ABC and just let them punt to you.
But limit hold'em, I feel is more of just simple math problem. The game's kind of solved in a respect. So not a lot of stuff about bet sizing, and position isn't as important, and no one's running sims on limit. So it's just sit there and there's a right and wrong move, and just make the move and figure it out and just go with it.
Yeah.
That's
the
kind
one good thing about Limit. I love how fast it plays. That's the one because I played a little 2040-08 for a while, and I just was like, man, people's decisions, they're used to making similar decisions all the time, and it's always getting the same pot odds and whatever, and so it's just like call or not, and like right away, and I was like, oh my god, then you go and play No Limit after that, and it's like watching paint dry, watching people like
it's a better game.
movements.
Really, if people that started off No Limit don't see it. It's a better game. First of all, like all the fish and the newbies don't lose their money so fast, so they can learn over a couple of months without going broke. So I mean, you see it all the time in Vegas. Guy comes in and it's his first time playing, drops $120, $200 in a 1-2 game in 5 minutes, and you never see him again. That's it. Limit 4-8, he'd lose $20, and he has a chance to learn from his mistakes.
And at least gets a drink or two before before leaving.
No,
that's what they're doing. They're doing in LA now. Like the limits are so low. Like a lot of these games, like the 1-2, even at Commerce, it's like insane. It's like $80 cap or something, and it's because they're like trying to stop people from going broke so quick.
Yeah, here in Florida, they have like a 1-2 game that's like a $50 max or something, and then a 1-2 game it's $200, and a 1-3 game it's $500. So, and they play totally different, obviously. Yeah.
That's cool.
So, how has we spoke to Kyle FISCHL, who's playing in Florida as well, but how has it been post-COVID poker in Florida? Are people like taking it seriously, or
like I'm in St. Pete in poker room that's in St. Pete. Literally, they were going to open like before anybody else, like in late March. Then the governor had to come and say no. The day it was open, people are standing outside, parking lots full. It's like they don't, and it's an older crowd, like I said, and the dealers, they just no. I mean, Florida in general. I mean, I'm sure you hear about it in the news. It's kind of a running joke. Are people just? I mean, it's a different dynamic here than the rest of the country. We live in the Northeast, live in Vegas, Florida. And this is old people too. I mean, people that are 70, 80 years old, or young people, they just don't wear masks. They don't care. They just don't care.
Is the casino enforcing it at all, or?
Oh yeah. Well, at the casino you have to wear a mask because it's a state law, and you got to have the hand sanitizer. So there's no button. It's a ball, like a bottle of hand sanitizer. It's a button they move around. It's a pain in the ass.
That's weird.
Can't see anything, but people. No one talks about it. No one's worried about it. I mean, I shouldn't say that. There's a few older Asian women that I play with that they're real sticklers. If it's not above their nose, they'll call the floor. Hey, tell him put his mask above his nose. That kind of stuff. But in general, no one. It's not even a factor. Not even a factor.
Do they have any? Do they have any plans in effect if like people did start getting sick? Because I know that some sports organizations that opened up again would say, especially I was just watching the Tour de France, which is the lamest sport, but I like it. And they were saying if anyone, because they've been quarantined, they said if anybody gets sick, the race would be canceled that day. Whoever's leading it that day would win. And I'm wondering, I don't know, like what do poker rooms do? Because what if it was 5 dealers or something?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that. Even at the Hard Rock, which is a much bigger room here, I haven't heard about that. I haven't heard any news about people getting sick, players, dealers, nothing. So
that's great. I mean, that's great for live poker going forward because it just seemed to me that that's one of the worst places to be. If people are staying away from bars and restaurants, then poker, where you're sitting for long periods of time and not washing your hands, and everyone touches each other's stuff. And they breathe really close next to each other. I thought that would be one of the last places I'd want to be. But if no one's getting sick, and if Florida wants to be the test cases like they always do.
No, I mean, the rooms are packed. People are playing. It's 7-handed, no dividers and nothing like that. It's just masks, and that's it. I mean, no one's getting sick, and no one does anything. So, if that's a test case, then good sign.
Yeah.
Good sign.
Yeah. I guess I just have like I obviously, I'm sitting right here, but I want to know, like, what do you think about me playing poker and choosing to get into poker and kind of taking that path?
I actually like it because you chose it, and you seem happy doing it. I don't think at this point, being 29, that you could go back to anything else. Not because you couldn't go back to school or wouldn't want to. I just think that in your heart you couldn't do it. you'd be bored, drive you crazy. Now that you've seen what it's like to be free, you could never go back. And in some ways, I also look at it like, maybe sometimes it takes 2 generations to kind of go all the way, so like I took it as far as I could go, and you picked up where I left off, and I've already gone way farther than I've gone, playing in the big games and just the name you have in poker. It's kind of funny because like the first 6 months we were in Vegas, Marle started playing. She was like 24 or whatever. People would say, "Hey, Gary's daughter's coming in." 6 months later, it's all about, there's Marle's dad. There's Marle's dad. It changed so fast. So now it's just, now they were 20 years playing at the Bellagio, and in 6 months, no one even knew my name anymore.
Yeah.
So.
I have a related story to that, which is far more ridiculous. I was walking down the Rio hallway. I had a pet stay room, and I'm bringing Crouton, and some guy goes, "Oh, cute dog. Is that Crouton?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's my dog, Crouton." He's like, "Oh, cool. Yeah, I follow him on Twitter." And then he just keeps walking.
That's amazing.
I was like, "You know my dog and not me. Like, I don't know how I feel about this." That's pretty hilarious, though.
It's so weird, though. Like, I don't know, like in this, actually we were just out to eat the other day in just like a random restaurant in Gloucester, UK, and the guy, the chef, recognized Spraggy. He was like, "Oh, are you Spraggy?"
That's awesome.
It's so
cool.
He
follows him on Twitch?
He watches the stream and just a poker fan. But it is just kind of weird doing content and being in that like space because people just know shit about you and you're just like, it is weird. But
I mean, what bothers me, if anything, but you can't do anything about it, is like in the beginning when Marle and I would be playing in Vegas, we didn't tell anybody at the same table that we were father and daughter. Actually, a lot of people thought we were a couple when they knew us because they thought we were going out. Drive them out crazy, but didn't bother me at all. But like, so like no one knew that I was her dad. So these young guys would just say stuff all the time, in the beginning, and it was brutal. And then even now, watching some of the comments from the podcast or even on Spraggy's chat, I mean, people are just rude, Yeah. But that comes with part of the territory. I mean, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I actually was going to ask you about that because my mom is kind of shielded from that stuff. Like she'll like tune into a thing I'm commentating once in a while, but doesn't really get into the like controversies and all this stuff because I don't know. It feels gross to like read stuff about yourself and be like, "Oh, I hope my mom doesn't see that," whatever. Like you kind of have to if you're paying attention to this stuff. And don't you just want to beat these people up?
I know what it is, and I know the kind of guy it is, and probably I can't do anything about it. Yeah. And Marle does a good job taking care of herself. So and Spraggy's real quick to ban people, and stuff. So it's being taken care of. So they don't need me getting involved for sure. But there's times when it gets. But stuff like Marle's first few vlogs there, where she did the one about finding a poker boyfriend or trying to get buy-ins and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I find it funny because I know I obviously know there's no truth to it. So. It was, that doesn't bother me at all.
I always tell people the story of that vlog because I called you and was like, something about making this video. Like I'm thinking about approaching people on the strip and saying like, I'll sleep with you if you give me a buy-in. And you were like, that's prostitution. You literally can't do that. You were like, find a different way. And I was like, well, what should I do? And you're like, it's a funny, but like find a different way because you'll get arrested. And people think it's so funny that I literally called my dad and was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna like a video about being a hooker." And you're like, "Okay."
You're like, "Okay, have fun, be safe."
But the funny part is she had other clothes already. So how'd she have all the hooker clothes?
Yeah, Marle, how did you?
All right, next question. But yeah, I definitely, people ask me that a lot. Like, how does your dad feel about the stuff you make or whatever? But I think it just comes down to like, me so well that like, I think there was even this like story from when I was in high school where like this guy asked you if he could ask me out and you were like, ask her. If she says yes, then you're good. Like you just kind of let me whatever. Yeah. You trust me. Like, that I'm not, you know me so well that you're just like, whatever,
Yeah. I mean, Marle, because people always say, with guys that have daughters and it's all, I'm gonna get a shotgun. I mean, I never had that phase with Marle like that, and she was a different dynamic. I think because she was so busy with the modeling, being in new school, not really being in the clique. I think guys her own age just never would approach.
I didn't really like movies. I was shy. Like I didn't really do that, all that stuff in high school, but
Yeah, she was shy and I was kind of an introvert too. It's one thing I wanted to work on too. So like when we did these model castings, I made her go in and deal with the photographer, the agents, and everybody, hair and makeup. I kind of stayed in the background. Like even when we would travel, stay in hotels, like she would go into the check-in and all that. So yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. So now she travels all over. Moved to New York City at 18 by herself and just subway, figured it out and travels around. Mm-hmm. Went to Triton, couldn't even speak the language, figuring it out how to get around Europe. Well, yeah, I mean.
Well, I literally didn't leave the hotel that whole trip. I didn't leave the casino, so that helps.
That's poker trips, man. That's something too that I'm gonna fix after when we can travel more again. Is just get out of the casino. There were 1 or 2 trips where I did that, where I just didn't play as much poker and had such a great time. Then I have beautiful places I went to, and I'm like, well, the inside of the casino was lovely. The room service was great, and you're like, whoop, messed that one up. I don't know. I feel like we're gonna travel a lot more and have more fun after this.
If it wasn't for COVID, I mean, my wife and I would have already been over to England and to visit or see what's going on, check the whole thing out. But obviously, we're going back and forth. It's super tough right now, so got to stay put. I'm hoping this year either opens up enough or we can go there, or Marle and Spraggy could come here for the holidays. But we'll see. See how that works out.
Yeah, that's the plan. Where obviously we'd like for him to come, but Americans don't want those pesky Europeans in right now, so. You have to wait.
Which is so ironic. I mean, Europeans do not want pesky Americans right now either. We're banned from almost everywhere. Oh my God, it's crazy.
I don't know. Yeah, it's so weird how the American border is still closed to Europeans, because most countries over here are handling it pretty well. They really are. The UK is handling it pretty well. The numbers are going down, and
people in Florida is like a red flag too. People
it is.
In Florida, they think you're nuts. So anybody but Floridians can come. So all right, whatever.
Yeah, it's funny. You were telling me, like, you asked like a bartender or whatever what he thought about it. He literally didn't know what you're talking about, like about COVID. You were like, how are you handling this? And he was like, what do you mean? Like, I thought that was just like,
I know.
It's so funny. Like, there's so many parts of the world and the country that just live in their own little bubble. They're not on Twitter. They're not in the news. They don't watch news. They just kind of live their life. And it's so funny.
I mean, Florida is totally different. I mean, Tampa isn't really like the deep South rednecks like Tallahassee or Pensacola would be, but it's not South Florida either, like Miami and that whole dynamic. So it's really just a normal city with a mixture, but it's totally different than Boston. It's totally different than Vegas. Even the politics. It's like people around here, loud and proud, to wear their MAGA hats and their Confederate flags. It's like, and no one ridicules them. It's like, that's the norm. You're in the majority down here. You do that.
Wow, my puppy does not like that.
Yeah, I haven't heard from her the whole time, and then she just.
Here, I'll show you.
Come here, baby.
Nope. My dog's going crazy now because he hears all that barking.
Bring him in. Let's show.
Bring him in?
Yeah.
Come on. All right. Yeah, plus, this is the time of day where we get a lot of thunderstorms, too, and dogs don't like thunderstorms.
Oh.
Wow, yes, dog party.
This is my mean guy right here.
What's his name?
Armani.
Armani, awesome. This is Buttercup.
She's getting big since the last time I the one on the podcast. Yeah, this is this guy.
Yeah, she's getting huge. She was 8 pounds 2 months ago, and she's, I don't know if I can see, whole dog. She's 22 pounds already. She eats everything. She's going to be huge.
Yeah. I'm sad. I don't have any of my animals here. I miss Chauncey so much.
You're going to have a cat in like every different country if you keep this up, In Dublin, you should just adopt one and then just pass it to the new roommate.
No,
I mean, the same cat. They're all the same cat. They all look the same to me.
They do kind of.
They don't look the same.
Well, Olaf is way grumpier than the other cats.
Yeah. Well, I told Jamie, like, that's what I was like. They all have different personalities, and Olaf likes to be alone. So I don't feel too bad leaving him because he's just an angry guy. But anyways, we'll wrap it up, I guess. But thanks so much for coming on. This was fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was good. And I wanted to be the special guest on here. So
You are the special guest.
Yeah.
I know.
We can really insult someone. If we just have someone we don't like, we'll be like, we have a guest today.
I won't be watching for that.
This person, we didn't have anybody to have on, so we were just like,
Well, at some point we'll all meet up in Vegas. We'll have a drink.
Yeah.
Soon.
Booked.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds
Very
good.
cool.
It was very nice to meet you.
You too. Thanks for having me. It was great.
Bye, Dad.